So, if you are searching for a 6-month-old twin sleep schedule, you are exactly in the right place. I'm going to walk you through the complete 6-month-old twin schedule, including naps, wake windows, bedtime, and exactly what to do when one twin wakes up earlier than the other one. Today, I am not going to be giving you a lecture about wake windows. I'm going to show you exactly what a successful day actually looks like for 6-month-old twins, hour by hour, nap by nap. So when you're watching this video, you're going to know exactly what to do starting tomorrow. Before we get started, make sure you have subscribed to Twin Sleep Talk, like this video, comment, and of course, share it with a friend. And make sure you stay with me till the end because I'm also going to answer some questions that I get asked by most twin parents at this exact stage. Things like, what do I do when one twin wakes up early? Should I wake the sleeping twin? What if my twins were premature? What if they're on like totally different schedules right now? All of that's coming, so let's get into it. My name's Laura Van Leuven. I am a registered nurse, a certified pediatric sleep consultant, and a mom of 5, including twins. I founded the Twin Sleep Academy and twinsleep.com, where I help parents of twins between the ages of newborn up till 18 months get their babies sleeping all night without using cry it out, without losing their minds, even if they are room sharing, rocking or feeding to sleep, or even co-sleeping. Now, after working almost exclusively with twin families over the past few years, I can tell you that 6 months is one of the most common ages where I see parents coming to me. And it's not because something's usually like wrong with their babies or they're doing something wildly wrong. It's because what worked in the newborn phase has stopped working. So you've probably discovered some, I call them Band-Aid fixes, some little tricks, some little hacks that will get your babies to sleep. And now that they're 6 months old, they're starting to outgrow some of those things, and parents don't really know what to do beyond that. And nobody told them that it's time to change their approach, or if they did, they were probably told by the doctor to just let their babies cry it out. They'll figure it out eventually. And most parents just don't feel comfortable with that. And not to mention, even if you do want to use cry it out, most doctors aren't going to walk through the steps with you. They're not going to let you know how important it is to also have a good bedtime routine, nap time routine, the right nursery setup, and how long to actually let them cry. So, all that to say, that's what today is about. And before we dive in, I just want you to know that linked down below in the description, I have a free guide called The Top 5 Twin Sleep Mistakes that you don't even know you're making and how to fix them. So grab it now because it will pair perfectly with what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so before we really get into the schedule, I want to give you the big picture because this is where everything is going to start making sense. Around 6 months, most twins do best with about 3 naps a day and somewhere between 2 and 3 hours of awake time between sleeps. Most babies need about 14 to 15 hours of total sleep in a day or in a 24-hour period. And usually a bedtime lands best between 6:30 at the earliest and 8 o'clock at the latest. Now, I do want to say something really important because before we go any further, because this is where a lot of parents get tripped up on the actual timing of the nap schedule. Let me just say the exact schedule matters less than the rhythm. So I am going to show you a sample schedule in just a minute, one that I show my Twin Sleep Academy clients. But I don't want you to look at it and think, my twins wake up at 6:45 or 7 o'clock, or they don't get up till 7:30. You might start to think like this isn't going to work for us because of the different wake up time. Now, that's not really how this works. I want you to just sort of try to forget about that. What matters most is the spacing, the pattern of the day. So the schedule I'm going to show you is a framework. It is not a rule. And here's something else I just want to say so that you don't feel a lot of pressure. Most twin parents at 6 months, they're still in sort of this version a little bit of survival mode. So, a lot of parents are still using swings for nap or getting their babies to sleep. They're contact napping, feeding their babies to sleep. They're watching each individual baby and following their cues and sort of hoping for the best. And I want you to know that made complete sense when your twins were first born. Those strategies are exactly what you need in those early weeks. Babies do need a lot of contact, and that can be in the form of contact napping. They do need a lot of feedings, and it's pretty hard for them to stay awake. So, feeding to sleep is very natural. They love the motion of the swing. They really aren't able to settle themselves in those first few weeks. So, having that motion of the swing or you rocking them is what's helped them sleep. But after working with several twin families and being a twin mom myself, plus three singletons, 6 months is a really long time to be stuck in survival mode. And we feel it more when we have multiples. But the good news is, by 6 months old, your twins are ready for something different. Their sleep is starting to mature. Their wake windows are getting a little longer and more predictable. They can usually stay awake for feedings now. They can usually fall asleep without that motion, even if they haven't done it yet. Most are pretty capable of doing that. And they're just more capable of sleeping at 6 months than they were at 6 weeks. So, what they need now is not actually more of that soothing you've been doing. It's actually now what they need is more structure. So, let me show you what that structure looks like. Okay, this is a sample of a 6 month twin sleep schedule. So, let's walk through your day with me. So, let's say about 7 a.m., both babies are up. And I really do mean both. Even if one is still sleeping, we'll talk about why in just a minute. But a consistent morning wake time is probably the single most important piece of the whole puzzle. Then we're going to have about a 2 hour wake window. This is where most babies do really well. Yours might do a little more, maybe a little less, but likely not less than 2 hours. Honestly, nap one is usually the best nap of the day for most babies. You will probably get around an hour and a half, maybe an hour of sleep here in the first nap. Okay. But by 10:30 in the morning, 10:30 a.m., so an hour and a half later, both babies wake up again. So get both of them up, even if one, woke up earlier than the other one, make sure they're both up by 10:30. And then for nap number two, we're going to say around 1 o'clock, but it's about 2.5 hours later. So this one might be a little shorter than your first nap. So if it's not as long as nap number one, don't worry about it. That's okay. It probably will still land somewhere between an hour to an hour and a half. And this is where a lot of twin parents start to lose the schedule. So we are going to pay close attention to this afternoon nap. But by an hour and a half, both babies should be awake. So about 2:30 p.m. And then around 5 o'clock, we're going to do a cat nap. Okay. It's really important that it can be 20 minutes, it can be 30 minutes, but no longer than 30 minutes. I see some families trying to pull 45 minutes. That's kind of the absolute max, but really you want to keep it around 20 to 30 minutes, okay? Because if the nap goes too long or too late, it's going to push bedtime back and just end up messing up the whole evening and then eventually the whole night, which is not what we want. Okay, so by 5:30, both babies are awake, and just seriously do not let this creep past 5:30. So even if you're like, they really need 45 minutes, fine. Put them down at 4:45. Get them up by 5:30. Even if you need to set an alarm, I know sometimes I have to do that because it's going to be a really busy time of day in my house with 5 kids. A lot of times from 5 to 5:30 when my youngest was napping, I was like quick putting dinner together. And things always are happening and interrupting me. So it's really important if you've got a busy household like mine to set an alarm for yourself. And then after that, you have about another 2 hour wind down, maybe 2.5 hours if your babies need a little more time. So that would be around a 7:30 to 8 o'clock bedtime. Now, let me just say this again. This is an example. This is not a rule. Your twins might naturally wake up at 6:30 instead of 7 o'clock, and that's fine. Just, shift everything that I've outlined here by 30 minutes. The important thing is really the spacing and the rhythm of your day. Now, what you're going to notice is this schedule creates predictability. You are always going to know what's coming next. And more importantly, your babies start to know what's coming next too. And that predictability is actually what helps them sleep better and their bodies start to anticipate sleep before it even comes. Let these routines do some of the heavy lifting for you because when you are one parent to two or more babies, having other structures in place that actually start to soothe your children is going to be what helps you get them to sleep, where you're not the one having to rock and feed and hold and bounce and do all these sorts of things for them. Another thing I want you to notice is when both babies are on this rhythm together, you are going to actually start to get some breaks in your day. I know that up until now, you probably haven't experienced that. But it can happen. Imagine nap one together, nap two together, a short little third nap together. And that is what makes twin parenting survivable and actually where you can start to enjoy being a parent of twins. Like I said, you're going to know in the morning for like an hour, you can sit and have a cup of coffee and a book or take a shower without somebody bothering you or just get the house put together for the day. And then in the afternoon, you might be able to take a little nap yourself or put on an exercise video or do what you need to do for your own health and mental well-being. And then in the evening, like I said, it's a perfect 30-minute block to either just boil some pasta and throw a little spaghetti sauce on it, or maybe pop a pizza in the oven. Okay, now what I see a lot also is that most 6-month-old twin schedules, they will stop right there. Like, here's your schedule, go ahead, good luck. But I have worked with enough twin families to know that the schedule and putting it together is actually the easy part. What's hard is maintaining it as life happens. So, I want to walk you through 3 things that matter most for twin families specifically, because if you get these things right, then your schedule is actually going to hold together. Okay, number 1 is having a consistent morning wake up time. This really, I can't emphasize this enough. This is the foundation of everything. It's the piece a lot of twin parents skip because it feels counterintuitive. So when one of your babies is sleeping peacefully at 7:30, the last thing you want to do is wake them up. I get it. So you've probably been up multiple times overnight and that sleeping baby feels like a gift. But what actually happens when you let one baby sleep in is you throw off the entire day. The nap window shifts. They're not tired at the same time as their other twin. By afternoon, you've got babies on 2 different schedules and you're back to survival. I lived this. When my twins were like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months old, I was still following their individual cues because that's what I had done with my oldest daughter. And it worked really well with her. But with twins, I actually created 2 different routines, like 2 different schedules, and they were very different personalities. And they even had different sleep needs, which was very challenging. So I was constantly managing their 2 different nap schedules and nap routines and bedtime windows. And I also had this 2-year-old who was trying to drop her nap and she was on like a totally different schedule. And I was so exhausted. And it wasn't until I committed to following like a really set daily routine, which included a consistent morning wake time. And that's when both babies started to click into place and having their same routine. All that to say, pick a routine. Even on hard nights, I know it is really hard when they've been up a few times a night, even when it hurts, when it's like Saturday and you're like, really, we're getting up at 6:30. Look, it's not forever. I promise you. That one decision is going to do more for your routine than probably almost anything else. Okay, number 2, nap them together. I know. Maybe this sounds obvious, but So many twin parents that I've worked with, they end up putting their babies down at different times. I know I did for a while. And it's because what they're doing is they're following each baby's individual cues instead of following the schedule. So it's like twin A will seem tired, so you put him down. But twin B is still ready to play. And now you have one baby in the crib and one baby that needs your attention. So then twin A is going to wake up from his nap, but twin B is now tired. So you put twin B down, and it's just your entire day is like this long loop of like naps and wake time, and there's no break in between. So honestly, the solution is just simpler than you might think. You just put them down at the same time based on the schedule, not based on who seems tired. Now, one twin is likely going to fall asleep faster, and that's okay. One twin might kick around in their crib for a little while, and please hear me on this. That is okay. A baby lying quietly in his crib, even if he's not fully asleep yet, it's not a problem. It's actually a skill he's building, learning to be still, learning to be comfortable in this space and alone, learning to wind down without you having to do it for him. That skill is going to serve him and you for years. Even when they stop taking naps altogether, I know that's a terrifying thought, but it does eventually happen. Okay, the third concept that I really want to emphasize here is as much as it's important to have a consistent wake time, having a consistent bedtime is also really important. And I do see parents making this mistake more than maybe the wake time mistake. I'm not sure because it's easier for this one to get messed up by the end of the day. So what happens is like the day was rough, naps were shorter than expected, everyone is cranky and tired. And so parents will either bring bedtime way too early, like 6 p.m. I've seen them bringing it earlier than 6 p.m. Or they're going to push it way too late. And what happens on both of these spectrums is either the babies aren't actually tired enough to sleep for the whole night, or they're too tired and they're going to fight sleep. They're going to wake more overnight. They're going to end up waking up earlier in the morning. And part of that is because they're going to have such a hard time going down that parents are usually then resorting to those old survival tactics. So putting them in a swing, feeding them to sleep, rocking them to sleep. And now their babies are learning again, like we need these things to fall asleep, and they're not going to stay asleep as well. So the fix is to move the bedtime a little later if you're thinking about putting them down by 6 o'clock, or to actually move the bedtime a little earlier if you're feeling like I need to just push this out so they'll sleep better. Again, we're shooting for somewhere between 6:30 and 8 p.m. So somewhere in that window. That is going to result in a better night's sleep than putting them down at either 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. Now, I just want to be clear on this because I hear this a lot, but overtiredness, it is not this like scary monster, like hiding around every corner. Especially at 6 months old, you do not need to be like afraid of your babies getting overtired. But I do think that sleep debt is real. So when babies are constantly missing the amount of sleep that their bodies need, like they're going to bed too late, they're waking up all night, and then they're getting up for the day at like 5 o'clock in the morning, that's where they start to release some of those stress hormones, and they may actually become harder to settle. They might wake more often and have more fragmented sleep. So again, the goal is not perfection. It's helping your babies get enough sleep consistently over time. This can sometimes feel backward for people, but I just want you to understand that your twins' nervous systems, they're still developing, and being overtired can create a stress response that just makes sleep harder, not necessarily easier. So, all that to say, pick a bedtime window somewhere between 6:30 and 8 p.m. and try to protect it. Don't let a rough day push you outside of that window. All right, let's talk about some of the frequently asked questions that I get asked by most parents of 6-month-old twins, because I know some of you are watching this and thinking, okay, but what about my situation? So let's go through some of them. What if one twin wakes up early from a nap? I get this one all the time. Here's what you do. You give the early waker like 10 to 15 minutes, see if they will fall back asleep, And if they don't, then go ahead and get them up. But make sure you're waking the other twin about 10 to 15 minutes before getting the first one up. And so you might need to adjust the nap slightly earlier to compensate. But you're never adjusting like more than 10 to 15 minutes. So they do end up staying pretty coordinated. So, should I wake the sleeping twin? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. And I know that goes against every instinct you have and what everyone probably tells you. But yeah, you should. Again, you don't have to wake them up immediately. Give them an extra 10 to 15 minutes. But if one twin is awake and the other one is sleeping, wake them so that they stay on the same rhythm. Now, the short term pain of waking the sleeping baby is worth the long term gain of getting them in sync. Okay, another question I get asked, and this was my situation, is what if one twin needs more sleep than the other one? And honestly, this is really common, especially when your twins have different temperaments. Here's how I handle it. Build your schedule around the twin that needs more sleep. So, the twin who will naturally fall asleep more easily. The twin who needs a little less sleep might have some independent crib time at the beginning or at the end of the nap. And that's okay. It is actually a skill worth developing. The goal isn't to make both twins sleep exactly identical. It's just to get them like coordinated. I think of it like outfits that I used to put my twins in. My twins are fraternal boys, and I just really didn't ever want to put them in like the exact same outfit, but I did like to coordinate them. So, like the same kind of color patterns or maybe the same character on their outfit. Okay. Another question I get asked a lot is what if one twin skips a nap entirely? Number one, don't panic. This happens all the time. If one twin completely skips a nap, just move their next nap up slightly, and then you can move bedtime up slightly because, again, you do want to avoid them getting overtired. So, a slightly earlier bedtime on a short nap day will almost always give you a better night than pushing through. So, if you normally are putting them to bed at 7 p.m. or 7:15 p.m., you can push it up to either like 6:45 or 6:30. Another one I get asked all the time, especially working with twins, is what if my twins were premature? This is so important, and I'm glad you asked this question. Now, let's talk about adjusted age. It can be helpful as a starting point, especially for the first 3 months. But after the first few months, I do encourage parents to look at the babies in front of them, not just the math. Now, this only is for sleep. I don't recommend doing this for any other developmental tasks or skills that babies have, but we're just talking about sleep here. Okay. So many premature twins after the newborn stage are actually ready for longer wake windows, predictable schedules, and independent sleep skills based on their development and behavior, even if their adjusted age is different than their chronological age. So that's why I don't encourage parents to just automatically build their schedules based on adjusted age. Again, this is not what I recommend for other developmental tasks like eating or communication or gross and fine motor, those types of things, okay? But let's look at the whole picture of your twins. How long can they comfortably stay awake? Is it closer to their chronological age or adjusted age? How are they handling naps? What do their nights look like? So please don't assume that just because your twins were premature, that good sleep is out of reach. Now, I've worked with families of premature babies, including twins that were born extremely early, who went on to become excellent sleepers. So I just want to leave you with one story before we wrap up, because I think it's going to make everything I just talked about feel real. So I worked with a family who came to me with their 6-month-old twins. They were still doing like 4 or 5 cat naps throughout the day. So these like 20 to 30 minutes, just sort of like one of those, they seem tired, I'm going to lay them down kind of things. So what happened was those twins were on completely different schedules. A lot of the naps were actually happening in the swing. And some of the time they were contact napping in mom or nanny's arms. Bedtime was all over the place. Wake time was all over the place. They were up multiple times every single night, even though mom was sure that they weren't actually hungry anymore. Mom and dad, they were completely running on empty. These were their first babies. They had never done this before. They didn't know what to do. They felt like, they were failing. They saw their friends with similar age babies that were singletons and sleep was going okay. And they were like, what are we doing wrong? So she came to me for a plan that was geared specifically for twins. And we got her twins on a parent led schedule built specifically for her twins. This had consistent wake times, coordinated naps, and a very small protected bedtime window. We also got the sleep environment set up properly with, white noise, blackout curtains, and consistent crib sleep. Within a week, the twins were on a consistent daytime schedule and the night wakings were gone. Because what was actually happening was those cat naps throughout the day, they weren't giving her twins enough consolidated sleep. They weren't building like the right kind of sleep pressure, that healthy, tired enough that the baby can fall asleep and stay asleep. Once their schedule gave them real naps with real wake windows and real predictability, nighttime sleep pretty much just fixed itself. And that is what a good daytime schedule can do. It sets your twins up for success around the clock, not just at bedtime. Okay, so now you know what a successful day looks like for 6-month-old twins. You have a real schedule to work from, and you know the things that matter the most. And you know what to do when things don't go perfectly because they rarely will. And that's okay. Here's the thing though. Knowing the schedule and how to handle the daily routine, that is one piece of sleep. The part that's harder, the part where most parents get stuck, it's figuring out how to actually get two babies falling asleep independently in their cribs without you in the room, without you feeding them to sleep every time, rocking them for 45 minutes, without the swing. That's the piece that changes everything. And that's exactly what I walk through inside the Twin Sleep Academy. The Twin Sleep Academy is built specifically for twins. It's not generic sleep advice with the word twins tacked on. It's not like a bonus chapter or a footnote. This is real schedules designed for two, gentle strategies and intermediate strategies that work for two babies sharing a nursery. Support from someone who's done it herself. It is not just a pile of PDFs and a set of videos. You actually get to talk with me live twice a month, ask questions. Plus, it includes my exclusive Facebook group where I answer your specific questions. So if you're ready to stop surviving and start sleeping, the link is down below in the description. And if you're not quite there yet, that's totally okay. You can start with my free guide. It's also linked down in the description. It's called the Top 5 Twin Sleep Mistakes You Don't Even Know You're Making and How to Fix Them. So it's a great first step and it's completely free. If this video helped you, please subscribe, leave a comment below. Let me know, what does your twins' current schedule look like? I read every comment. And of course, share this with a friend or in your twin mom group because you probably know someone with 6-month-old twins who is struggling right now when it comes to sleep. I'll see you in the next video, friends.